Welcome to Eclectic Soundtrax Podcast. On this episode, we chat with guitarist, keyboardist, singer-songwriter, and bandleader, Luke Bellet. Born in Singapore, wherever that is, Luke grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. He started playing music, moved to Austin, Texas, and founded the band Luke and the Lonely. Their debut, The Age of Enlightenment, came out in 2019, and you can check out their latest single, My Baby Loves Heavy Metal, on Spotify and other streaming platforms. Before we get started, we'd just like to remind you to go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and spread the word. We'd also like to thank our friends at Godin Guitars, Tragan Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and 5 Iron Woodworks. Now, let's see what Luke has to say. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Eclectic Soundtrax Podcast. Skunk Manhattan, Victor Ramos, and Luke Bellet. Is that how you say your name?
Luke Bellet.
Bellet. It is Bellet. So I thought maybe it was like some French thing, and I was going to try to be all like, Bellet, Luke Bellet.
You know, I'm legitimately considering just going by Bellet because it's a little easier, and it gives a little bit of a, maybe a little exciting flair for, one of the most white bread people in the world. So.
Well, right before we started, we were talking about we started talking about Nashville, and we'll get to that. But are you from Nashville? Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Nashville. I grew up there. I actually weirdly was born in Singapore.
What? Wow. So that's where the name. I thought that was like a Thai name.
No,
Wait, no. I'm thinking of the wrong. Singapore is. How dumb do I look right now? I'm thinking of Bangkok. That's where the fuck is Singapore? How do I not know this?
No. Singapore it's like Southeast Asia, and okay. I know way too little about it, given that I was born there. But no, the name is actually I don't have any. As far as I know, I need to take a 23andMe test or whatever. But as far as I know, I have no like Asian lineage. My dad worked in hospitals, and for some reason, he worked for HCA as like a hospital administrator, and he worked at Singapore General. So,
wow, that's so. How long were you in Singapore, Thailand, before you moved to Nashville? California.
You just assume trips were made to Thailand. It was nearby. I'm from a big family, and my parents started to have kids in Singapore, which was one of the first places they lived when they got married. And they had my older brother and me, and I think they were there for 2 years. Then they moved to Spain, where he worked at a different hospital, and had Matthew, the younger, my brother, right below me. And then he was going to go to Ireland next, and then my mom was like, "It is time to go back to the States." And I think my dad was having a bit more fun than her because he was working and stuff, and she was just raising kids in a land without her mom and without knowing the language. So
yeah, it's,
all in Thailand, right? All those countries.
yeah, those
Spain and Ireland, Thailand. Yeah.
Spain is a province of Australia.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
My dad was a faithful man. Damn it.
What Luke is failing to say is that all of his siblings look entirely different. Like they're not. It looks like Angelina Jolie's family.
I think that would have been if my mom was unfaithful. Anyway.
Again, I'm an idiot. I don't know where Singapore is. I don't know how babies are made. Okay, so Luke, how many siblings do you have?
I have 8 siblings.
Whoa,
holy
man.
shit. Okay, wow.
You're Mexican practically. Right.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
welcome.
honorary if they'll take me.
That's right. Yeah.
Spain, Mexico, same thing, right, Vic? That's
Yeah, same thing.
it's the
Same language,
same
right?
exact stuff, right? Everyone looks the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, everything I've heard about Spain is like the international San Diego. It just sounds like the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful place. And like this is what I've gotten from anyone that goes to Spain. It's like, oh yeah, you wake up, you drink, you take a nap in the middle of the day, and then you party all night on the beach or something. It sounds fucking awesome.
Cheese and meat, right?
Cheese and meat. I mean, that there is that too. Like for me,
Yeah.
I'm like cheese, meat, napping. That's basically what I do.
Dude, I'm with you, man. I want to go there so bad.
So you were international. I mean, you were in a few different places before you ended up in Nashville. But have you traveled abroad really since, or as an adult, or not?
Not really. I think I was like in Rome for a week when I was in 6th grade. My dad got some. It was actually like Valentine's Day weekend. There was some thing he took the 3 oldest over to the Vatican. We're Catholic, so as you was already obvious, the 9 children, but
Catholic and Mexican or Spanish.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly.
So we were going back to the motherland, I guess. We were going to the Vatican, and then my dad worked sometimes in Guatemala, and so I remember I was there for at one point in high school, I think.
That's cool.
But that's basically the extent of my international travel. I'm not very well traveled. I've lived in Nashville and Austin, and they're like very similar cities.
Mm-hmm. So, huge family Catholic. Bellet is actually a Hispanic name, which we learned tonight.
It's actually I think it's Polish.
Polish. Okay. So Nashville. So how long were you in Nashville before you moved to Austin? When did you start playing guitar and music? I mean, you play guitar, piano, sing. You're one of those guys who probably plays a little bit of everything. And we met because we both teach at Lone Star School of Music.
Right.
And so, and I know you teach different things over there. And
I actually don't teach there anymore.
Oh, really? Okay. What you doing now?
I'm teaching independently.
Okay, cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird are you doing online stuff with that? Or are you doing more location or?
So here's honesty time. I've been a little bolder with my getting out there. So I've actually taught. I actually have 2 days that I basically teach entirely in Dripping Springs.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
And but it is the vast majority of it is Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, I used to be like that where I just had days stacked where I would drive around like Westlake and Lost Creek neighborhoods and stuff like that. But man, ever since and I was always like, yeah, people doing Skype, I should do this, and haven't set it up. And then obviously this happens, and you're like, well, I guess this is what I do now. So I personally dig it. I mean, there is something to be said for in person in certain situations for sure, but it's nice having the option. Anywho, that's where we kind of met. So, and then discovered your band, Luke and the Lonely. How long have you guys been playing together? And who's in that band?
So, three main staple members: Nick Tozzo, the drummer, and we call him at Nick Tozzo Drums.
Does he work at Lone Star? I feel like I met him there subbing or something.
Yeah, he's subbed there before. I don't think he's been there in a while, but he teaches at some other music schools. I think one of them's Allegro School of Music, and then Sara Nuttall. She goes by Sara Louise, kind of is her artist name, but she's the other fixture member. And then we kind of have, I like to say, rotating cast of bass players. It's another way of saying that we can't seem to keep one.
Yeah, I have a whole rotating cast of an entire band.
It's kind of I kind of enjoy it. Like I like that we have a couple fixture members, but you always learn something new from different players, and it is a hassle though to like relearn everything.
Yeah, at that point it kind of depends on, people really, if you're working in that situation, it's nice when and it's a two-party thing, like, you've got the material recorded, maybe charged, maybe whatever, and then the other person does their homework and is capable of sort of learning on their own. So you can kind of get together, maybe do a rehearsal and work out the kinks and not be like, let me hold your hand and show you everything. But what's interesting for me with all the different people I've played with now is like, it is kind of cool to have some fresh perspective and stuff every now and then, and so it's not always a bad thing to have some new blood coming in and out of the band, but it is cool that you have that core unit and you guys. So how long have you three been playing together? Are you collectively the founding members of the group, or how did that come together?
Yeah. So, and by the way, real quick, sorry to ask this, but for some reason I'm not hearing you quite as loud as I'm hearing Vic. That
always happens because Vic doesn't like my sexy, sultry voice. Okay, let me turn this up a little bit. Check 1, 2. Is that any better or not?
It's too sexy. That's too sexy.
Too sexy now.
Yeah. We're gonna have to edit you out.
I don't want to take up Luke's podcast with this, but I have suspicions that Vic has not been using my robust audio and trying to somehow make me sound thin and whiny.
You're trying to go Howard Stern. He's taking you the opposite.
Yeah, well, I've become really jealous of Vic and his voice on this podcast.
Oh yeah,
I thought I had a deep, cool voice, but I'm nowhere in his league. He's got the true radio voice. Anyway, well, yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention and further diminishing my ego, Luke.
Well, you can't have the golden rock voice, and you can't be greedy, Skunk.
Yeah, I want it all. I don't think I got any of it. I'm like, I got nothing, but I want it all. So speaking of great voice, you got a great voice. You and Sara, you're both. Does anyone else in the band sing, or you two are the singers, right?
No, we're the singers. If Nick doesn't sing, but anytime I think one like our first bass player, one of our first bass players, did sing a little bit, and but yeah, it's mostly the interplay. Like the vocals are mostly the interplay between Sara and I.
Mm-hmm.
So
now. Okay, so when did you three put the band together then?
So let's see. I want to say, like, why is this not just coming to me really easily? I know it's been like 2.5 years now, but maybe it's been 3. So it was somewhere in the neighborhood, and for some reason my when we got together is escaping me, but it was like 2 to 3 years. Sorry, band. I should know our anniversary date.
What I heard was
I'm in the doghouse.
No. What I heard was you guys you went on a bender in a hotel in Singapore, and just ended up writing some great songs. Yeah, Singapore, Thailand. Then you
we had a baby.
Hopped over to Tokyo, Germany. So okay, so when did you move to Austin, Luke?
I moved to Austin 2015. So
okay, cool.
About 6 years ago this March. So.
And what prompted the move from Nashville, this huge pop and music city, and arguably, well, not even arguably, like as a matter of fact, more of a business city, big time, right? I think it's sitting there in the LA, New York department and there's a lot of, everyone in California seems to either be moving to Austin or Nashville, right? But like,
or Texas,
so so you're kind of there, and there's all this music business, and there's a lot of music there. It is a different culture, I think, probably. So what was it about Austin that appealed to you?
Yeah, it was a lot more why not than why. I grew up in Nashville, and even though it was actually only a year after I made the realization that I wanted to pursue music as a career. That had been in the back of my head, that had been an aspiration, but I never was courageous about it until basically my girlfriend and I broke up 2013, and then my engineering job ended. I had an engineering job after college, and I was living with a drummer, and he was like, "Hey, show up at the burger up the restaurant." And I was like, "I've never worked at a restaurant. What are you talking about?" He's like, "My sister's the manager. I got you a job there." And I showed up, and this big Australian manager, Ross, was like, "So Katie tells me you're you've worked at a restaurant before? And I'm just like, yeah, sure.
I worked at Outback.
That's right. Yeah. I just like should have responded with an Australian accent. And I was a terrible waiter, but that was kind of like I was just going to do it for a moment while I got my resume together to get another engineering job. I was still terrified to jump off the lily pad of like, a desk job. And I just, I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I'm not going back. And I lived there for a year, or I worked at that place for like a year and a half, living with a drummer and another friend. And I was just burnt out on Nashville. I just found myself really not expanding, like going into my, into the vast possibilities within Nashville. I kept, going to my buddy's house and going to my family's house and not really taking advantage of anything there. And I realized I need to go somewhere where I don't have a choice, but, to build a community from the ground up. And I called up my buddy who was in law school here in Austin, and he was like, "You're not gonna listen to me, but you need to get the hell out of there," because I was just complaining about how bad of a year I had or something. And I was like, "You know what, Brett? I actually will do that." I made the decision on that phone call to move to Austin because I was like, it's a music town, and it sounds exciting. Let's do it. It sounds warm. So I made the decision pretty suddenly, and then a few months later, I got all my stuff together and moved out. And so, yeah, that's how I made it down.
Awesome, man. And so then when you were here, how did you, what did you start doing to sort of get out there and network and meet people? And how did that lead to meeting Sara and Nick?
Right. So when I first moved to Austin, I'll try not to give you like the too long version, but like I immediately got involved with the restaurant because that was kind of what I knew, even though I was, like I said, awful at it. Only had a year and a half experience. And I made the mistake of, when I was in Nashville, I worked at like a burger joint where, they didn't care. Like, yeah, whatever. Well, we know this isn't your passion. Like, just don't screw up the menu items, please. Like, and basically when I got down to Austin, I encountered, restaurants that really cared. And I worked at a place where we had a master sommelier give us a wine tasting before every shift. And I hated, I should say I respected it. And like to this day, I can't tell you the different types of wines with any great detail, but my brain just refused to absorb any of it. And so I hated it, like working there so much that I got on Craigslist and I was like, damn it, I came down here to do music. Like, what am I doing? So I basically started making phone calls, for cover bands. And I was like, I need stage experience. I need to get my chops up. I'm the thing that I can offer that I'm good enough at to do right now is singing. And so I called out. I don't know how boldly I should. I kind of don't want to state where I worked because I'll.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do that, but and like I'm just gonna assume, like I've assumed everything else on this podcast, and just make stuff up. But like, I feel like it was a little, like I'm getting like the sense that it was like a French, and I never think about now. Now it's like connecting the dots in my own mind of like they saw your name, they're like, oh, Bellet, right? And they were like, oh, he's a French connoisseur, and he's got a restaurant experience, and it was like a cheese and pastry winery place, which wasn't at all, but that's enough for me. You don't have to say the name of the place.
And so, wait, you're saying I worked at a French cover band, or?
Oh no, I meant the restaurant. You're talking about bands?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. Honestly, I feel like we froze for a second there.
The name of the band. I thought you were talking about the name of the restaurant. You were about to talk about the name of the band you joined. Anyway, well, that's what I think of the restaurant. So now, what? Well, yeah, you don't have to say the name.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant, and I'll avoid saying the name of the band. But basically, I worked for a cover band. It was like a company that had multiple cover bands.
Oh, was it like the Space Rockers or
It may or may not have been related. And
no, I know I feel like I know who you're talking about. Anywho.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not here to like speak.
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak badly about anyone either, because I know people in all these different projects.
Yeah. And honestly, I am super grateful for the record for the job. I mean, like, I had a great time there, and I worked there for a year and a half, and I got a lot of awesome experience on stage. Being a goofball wearing 80s outfits, or trying to class it up for casinos, and so that was and it was really cool, because I discovered that where I had been in the engineering world and the restaurant world, and I was just like, am I just an incompetent human being? Like, I all of a sudden was adopting responsibility and like I feel like a productive member of society. Although that has diminishing. When you work at casinos, you're not. I don't know how much you're enriching people's lives, or you don't feel like it. But anyway, so I did that for a couple years, and I wound up joining a band through some friends from Metallica. Actually, sorry, there's the name of the restaurant. But there we go.
I just heard Metallica.
I worked for Metallica. They had a little Italian restaurant. But
that's gonna go in the synopsis, so people will watch this and be like, we speak to Luke Bellet from Thailand, who
worked
hung
in the
out with
restaurant.
Metallica. Yeah, worked out in Metallica's restaurant in Thailand
and drank wine with Lars Ulrich.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So no, you're good. You're good. So anyway, I got together, in a band with a few guys, and it was a band called Lip, and we were together for 3 years, and that was my first. Like, just like your first real relationship was my first, real band, and I was in a little folk trio called Sunshiner. It was with two ladies, and we did like 3-part harmonies and played acoustic instruments. So we did that for, I want to say, like 2 years. And during the time I was in Lip, I did some cool stuff. Our house burned down, actually. I wound up moving in with a couple of the guys, and we also played South by Official one year, which was very cool. I kind of flew right by the house burning or whatever, but
that's one of those things that, like, you're certainly like curious, but I also don't want to be like, now tell us about the worst moments of your life,
No,
so I'll leave that at your discretion.
No, I mean, I don't mind talking about. I mean, it was obviously devastating for a band. It wasn't the thing that led to our kind of eventually, parting ways, but it was, I lived with the drummer and the bass player. Our guitarists lived separately, but we got a place together. We sound treated it, and I kind of lucked out in the sense that I just didn't have all that much stuff. I didn't have that much equipment. I just had my guitar and piano, and they weren't worth a ton. But our drummer was a sound engineer and had we calculated we had a total of $55,000 of gear in the room that, our big music room. And so they were absolutely devastated. And basically, yeah, I wasn't even there when it happened. I got a call that basically had burned down like the middle of the night, and it was very surreal. It was just kind of like, wait, really? Like, you're not? I mean, I guess, yeah, you wouldn't call me at 1 a.m. to joke with me that the house burned down. And so, yeah, I mean, thank God, we had renter's insurance and they paid out, but they paid out the maximum, which was not even half. So we wound up getting, through crowdfunding, we managed to get essentially back the value of what we lost. I mean, obviously not entirely, especially when you include sentimental value, but
right.
But it had, one of the silver linings was I got the best gear because when you buy in bulk with a big check, you can get nicer equipment. So it was kind of a nice at the end. It felt like a restart, and again, like I just didn't have that much stuff, so it wasn't that devastating for me. It was more kind of the fallout with the band, and anyway, so we survived that, and then after a couple years, a couple more years, probably a year later, we parted ways, and by that time, so now we're finally getting to the band I'm in now. So there's a band called the Odbodys, and Nick was a drummer for them, and my buddy Dave, who I played in cover bands with, he was the main writer for that band, and I was kind of starting to get my keys, my chops for keyboard up a little bit, and so I basically asked Dave, "Hey, can I join?" And I wound up playing keys for like 2 or 3 shows. Then he left to work on cruises, and was like, the band basically broke up. And Nick was like, "Hey, do you write? I hear you write songs. Can you play me some?" And so I played him My Secret Room, and it's kind of it's one of this. It's like the first song that we played together. It's on our first EP, and he was like, he's like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So for whatever reason, I kind of thought it would be fun. I mean, I was really, because I was in Lip at the time, I was building it very casually. I was just kind of thinking what would be fun, and I was like, oh, it'd be really fun to have a chick singer to, like, because some of my songs were duets, and I wanted harmony. I wanted there to be harmony, and so Sarah came over, and we played Secret Room as a duet, and it was like, I mean, Sarah's a very quick study. She just, like, she hears the song once, and then she starts to sing, and she's like writing the part almost in the final form. So, which I can't.
So how did y'all meet?
Okay, yeah. So Sarah, I met Nick through that band, the Odbodys, through my friend Dave. With Sarah, I met her just kind of through open mics and stuff.
Okay.
Like the House Wine crowd in Austin. That I'm trying to remember if there was a particular event or something. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of through that, and she and I, it was probably a little flirty in the beginning, even though she and I are, platonic friends and all that. But we gave each other a lot of shit, and so we've kind of retained that, and it's kind of become sort of our band persona. I feel like, in a way, whenever we're on stage, we just kind of continue to give each other shit like we do off stage.
A little bit of sassy.
Little sassy. That's right. Sorry, let me clean up my language here.
Yeah, this is a children's podcast, damn it. Yeah, cool, man. So, yeah, and when I first moved to Austin, that's definitely how I kind of initially met anyone, was just open mics. You know what I mean? And you just meet different
wine crowds
and what's that? Wine crowds.
Yeah, box wine though, right? You're into box wine.
Box wine crowd.
Yeah.
I'm a rock guy, so it's definitely box wine. It's nothing
right.
fine dining. Yeah.
Yeah, I have my books and my nice painting over here. You can see. I guess people on the podcast can't see that, but
very sophisticated and high class.
In my case, Skunk, it was very pinky off my glass.
Yeah.
Wine.
So what's this podcast about?
You guys can't see it, but Skunk just looked like a French, he looked like somebody from my lineage, a Bellet, perhaps.
That's right, yeah.
He's wearing a beret. It's perfect.
Yeah. Now, don't flatter yourself. I do this on every podcast. I went out and bought this just for I try to represent every culture when I interview someone, like, oh, a Bellet. So I got to get I've got some cheese and wine. I mean, I don't know. This is what I'm thinking of France, and this is what what's the word I'm looking? Not what's a word for narrow-minded or unintelligent? This is how uncultured and I am. I'm like, France. Okay, so a beret, cheese, wine, snails. Done. That's French toast, maybe.
Escargot.
French fries.
Yeah.
Surrendering. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. It was a terrible joke. Terrible. Bad skunk. I offended people, and you can't do that. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, where did we left off? Sassy.
Yeah, sassy. Yeah. We're talking about how I met Sara. So I met her through kind of the Austin Music Network, and she's a singer-songwriter as well. And for a while, she was doing a band of her own music. I played guitar for her. She went by, the Sara Louise. So, and then, so now we've just kind of been together a few years. We recorded an EP together. Before COVID, we had just finished our next recording effort, and we were kind of putting on our big boy britches and saved up some money, talked with Frenchie. We wanted to work with a producer that, somebody we couldn't afford to make music that was, great. And Nick is in Superphonicos, so I've been really fortunate. He's in a very successful band. They have, like, this year they have $20,000 of Black Fret funding.
Wow.
So he's the hand drummer for them, and he just kind of been around the block and is a more seasoned musician than me. So it's been, like, working with him has been really helpful with kind of taking us further than I would on my own. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's cool. You guys are a collective force working together. It seems like everyone's equally invested and brings something different to the table.
Yeah. For sure. And like the artwork, for example, of all their stuff coming up is Sara. She went to college for art.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
So really, I mean, that's great because,
yeah, everything nowadays, it's like you can have so much in-house. Well, it's always been like that with a lot of things, right? You see that in film and directors and their same cast popping up and stuff like that. And you see it in music and the collaborations with people, and they'll work with the same artist and the same videographers and all these kind of things. So when you have a team, and especially if they're in your band and everyone is able to contribute there, that's less outsourcing, less money, you have to go outside. And so that's awesome, man. Yeah, and your artwork is really cool. I was actually going to ask about that. Let's see. I'm actually pulling this up now. So you had the Age of Enlightenment. Was that your initial EP then that came out in 2019?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've had a couple of singles this year. My Baby Loves Heavy Metal, which is great. And the one, so I didn't realize this literally came out. Oh, wow. Today. So Crawling Back came out today. I just listened to that. Sounds great, man. I really love the end of that song. It gets kind of like almost epic-y, if that's a word. It's kind of cool.
No, whenever that came, like, that's what made me know the song. Like, this song is a thing, I was so happy because I always hear that in cool, like, indie rock bands. They have, like, these time changes that are really satisfying,
right?
And I don't, I don't do that on the regular. So I was just, like, really pleased with how that came out.
Yeah, no, I really dug it, man. So what's the plans for, I mean, obviously COVID has jacked things up, but you guys have done some live streams. I think you just did a live stream at, why do I want to say 1-to-1, right? Was that accurate or no?
No, we
just played somewhere, right?
Oh yeah. So I'm trying to think of what you're thinking of. We've been fortunate kind of as some restaurants have, kind of made the decision to start incorporating a little bit of live music. We've played a place called Hotel Zaza on the 7th floor Sarah and I have played as a duo, and they've been keeping it, you know, you know, pretty safe. And like we actually took a month off in January, and now we got another one back on the books finally. So it's been a way to dust off, get the chops going again. But yeah, actually, I mean, we're at the very beginning of COVID. Well, at the very beginning, to be honest with you, we've been joking about this. I mean, we literally did not even so much as text each other. And like there were like 2 or 3 months of absolute silence. We just kind of not
it's like getting off a tour and everyone's just like
going their separate ways.
Take some time.
Yeah. Like to the point where I was like, I hope that everybody still wants to be in this band. Like, and then we kind of realized this isn't just going to blow over, which I think is kind of what was in all our heads.
Right.
And then we kind of realized, okay, we can't let all these young whippersnapper SoundCloud kids, take over the music world while we're asleep. So we started to try to, have some Zoom calls and just start to talk about how to release things again. So kind of, this has been, the strategy. Let's just release stuff online. And we actually shot a music video over COVID. It was kind of a ways into COVID, but around the time that people were kind of we're doing things really carefully. And so amazingly, we managed to get, I won't give away too much. The music video is set in a psychologist's office. We actually managed to get one.
Oh, wow.
And so somebody was very kind to let us use their facility. And yeah, so that was really cool. That was a first time experience for me, shooting a music video. But that was something we did. And that's going to be in our final of these 4 singles that we release.
Okay.
It's going to be released with a video. So.
And you've released 2 or 3 right now?
2. So we headed off with My Baby Loves Heavy Metal and then Crawling Back. So 2 more to go.
Very cool. Yeah, nice. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know it's weird, right? Because everything's shut down. I'm getting a delay. Are y'all hearing that?
A little bit, yep.
Weird. I'm hearing a delay from you too, Vic. Well, we'll soldier through it.
Just don't look at the faces.
Now
I guess.
Vic froze. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's like everything was shut down and everyone was just waiting and watching for a while, right? And then things open and then reclosed. And I mean, that's been a trend. And I think at a certain point, you're like, well, we're all kind of, this is what it is. It's kind of fucked. And just like you said, I mean, you either have the choice of, some people have the choice of just staying home. A lot of people don't. But if you're going to go out, and try to do things and try to, the best you can do is just try to be safe and take precautions. And I've done that with a couple of different video shoots and things at this point, and a few studios. And I'm never super thrilled and comfortable, but I don't feel like from the things I've done, I don't feel too. It's not like being in a big crowd of non-masked people at a show, which I've seen a lot of, and I'm just sort of like, wow, okay. I support all my musical colleagues. I mean, I know everyone wants to get out and play, but I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. It's, whatever.
Dangerous game you're playing.
Dangerous game. I don't know. We'll see where I'm wondering if, you were one of the bands that played Skunk Fest, I want to say last year, but it wasn't last year. It was 2019. And then 2020 is completely over. Nothing happened. We postponed and then postponed again. And so now it's like, will it happen in August? I've actually got a show with my band, The Good Rogering, booked in August. And that's the first, I mean, we haven't played since January of 2020, or no, March, who knows? And it's like, will it happen? I don't know. I would like to think that by summer, maybe we're going to be coming around the bend a little bit in the vaccines. But I mean, hopefully by 2022. But right now, I feel like anything pre-summer, I think, is really, hard to expect anything that's going to be. Well, and what's weird is I heard some stuff about some people that are like, oh, we want to do a full capacity show in, July. And I'm like, is that realistic? I don't know. You know what I mean? So who knows, dude? Yeah, hopefully next year, though, we'll be, most people will be vaccinated and be able to move forward.
Once they roll out the vaccines and the anal swabs.
Is that the newest?
That's the newest testing from China. Anal swabs.
Jesus Christ. You know what? I heard those came out of Singapore.
I mentioned my dad worked in a hospital.
Yeah,
administrative. Maybe my dad rolled this out. No, I'm kidding.
Luke's dad's come up with the, hey, look, you only have to take one vaccination, but here's the catch. Oh, Jesus Christ. Right. And I'm just out of line on.
No, that's great. They're like, we like the current COVID tests, but they're not invasive enough. We know people.
Dude, honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if I had a choice between, that's a tough call. Like, do I want to shove a fucking Q-tip up into my brain or put one in my butt? I don't know. Neither one of them is comfortable. So thanks to I appreciate your dad looking into different options for us, Luke, is all I'm saying. It's nice to have options.
Dude, I love how confused, if people, tried to follow a linear path of, what my family is like.
Oh, dude, people are going to be like, this motherfucker's dad came up with the fucking COVID vaccine. He hung out with Metallica. This guy's had quite a life. He was born in some Asian country. Why do I have to Google Singapore? Why is this driving me crazy?
It's an island.
Huh.
It's kind of an interesting, they're a strange country in that they, a lot of their laws are meant to keep an intelligent populace or whatever, so it's hard to get citizenship there if you don't have an advanced degree. They're very interesting. Also, you get fined for. I don't think you can get arrested, but I think you get legitimately fined for leaving chewing gum on the street. You should read up on Singapore. It's interesting.
Dude,
very
was
clean city, right?
Was Singapore the place? Years back, there was something in the news about canings. Do y'all remember this? People were getting caned if you fucked up. That was a form of punishment. You would get
was that?
I don't know if it was a public thing, but I've got nothing right in this podcast, so I'm probably wrong. But it seems like it was Singapore. Somehow seems right to me.
Yeah, all I can think of is Singapore slings.
What is that?
That's a drink.
Oh well.
Oh really? I'm not
Baracho, Vic.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that. I think we should rename this Skunk and Luke pontificate about what culture might be in another country.
Right.
We just I don't know. Yeah, no.
You're gonna have to do another separate podcast or a public service to clear your name from how marred we presented you on this podcast.
I apologize for how I represented my birthplace. I guess I'm allowed to get it wrong, right? Because it's my birthplace.
There you go.
You don't know. You were baby. You don't know what was going on.
I don't know. I have no conscious memory from there.
1994. Yeah. American citizen sentenced to 6 strokes of the cane for theft and vandalism. Yeah.
There you go. Well, when you started speaking and you said 1994, I was like, is that when Luke was born? That's probably about right.
Shucks. You know what? You just, I'll take the compliment. I was born in 90.
90. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm an old man.
No, you're not. You're young, dude. Vic and I are old.
We are very old.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's when people born in 90s are turning 30. It's fucking crazy, man. But you're always younger than whoever's older than you, and you're always older than whoever's younger than you. That's a really famous quote that I just made up.
I don't have the brain power to work that one out, but I'm just gonna trust you.
Yeah, it's deep.
It reminds me. It's like the Bill Baggins quote, "I live half as much. I have half of you twice as much as I ought to," or something. I can't remember what it is.
No, that's the kind of stuff I read in a book, and then I'm like, this is why I don't read, because I have to just think too much. Some people who was I just talking to this about? People that can just speed read through shit, and there's different types of readers, right? Yeah. And I think I feel like I was having this conversation with someone, and maybe my fiance, I don't know, but about maybe it's more prone in women or something that they can kind of go through and there's ways of processing information, right? And we hear about this, like teachers always have to go to these seminars about different types of learning and this kind of stuff. And then like some people are visual and some people are auditory or whatever. But the ones that can just speed read, right? Like I feel like I can kind of, if I wanted to, I could go through and just kind of like, but it bothers me that I'm not like absorbing every bit of information and processing it. You know what I mean? And so I'm like one of those really slow readers that has to like read something and then read it again and then put the book down and never pick it up again. How do y'all read? This has nothing to do with anything, but Vic, you read a lot. What's your secret? How do you stay interested in books?
Well, I
not being ADD probably helps.
I find a book that I'm interested in.
CBD, does that help?
CBD. I use like get like a bookmark, and I just kind of hold it on the line that I'm on, right? And I just kind of scoot it down, right? So that's what I do. And I try to, when I read, I try to read at least 10 pages. I'm trying to work up to like 20 or 30 pages a session. And so I could, if you got a 300 page book, you can knock it out in like 10 days.
You know what I've noticed? I'm one of those people, like, I don't like stopping in the middle of a chapter. So if I'm reading a book where the chapters are 10 pages, 20, then I'm like, okay, I feel like I'll read a chapter, and then if I'm really ambitious, the next chapter is only 7 pages. I'll read that too. But if it's like a chapter that's like 35 pages, I'm like, well, I guess I'm done with this book. Luke, how are you? Do you read? And
no. I actually find this fascinating because I hadn't thought about. I think we all do this pretty differently. I reached a point in my life is actually because when I went to college, I studied engineering I was just like, I don't want to read or write. And then for some reason, I became a songwriter. And I realized, holy shit, if you want to be a songwriter, like you have to read and write, it involves, so I was kind of like, oh crap, well, I still feel like I'm trying to give myself a liberal arts education. And so I've just kind of been forcing myself to read good books. And, sometimes even when I don't like them, which is maybe a little bizarre.
That's a tough one though. Like if you're not into the subject, or if it's kind of dry, it's just tough to power through.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I've gotten through some books that I thought, man, I'll never read that. I just won't have. But the secret for me is I read 2 or 3 pages a night. And now it's to the point where I have I'm probably easily diagnosable as ADHD. I have 3 books and I read 2 or 3 pages out of each of them. And
that's not a bad idea.
I do too.
I feel this. I'm the same way about how I like little bits and then just slowly get there because I'm just not one of those people that can read endless pages in one sitting.
I'll also use like a pen or a pencil and I'll just kind of trace like per word. That kind of helps me focus a little bit. Or I pull an Art Vandelay and I take the book into the crapper and read it.
Oh man, that's
the best one.
That's how you know when you're becoming a real man, is when you have a stack of books sitting by the toilet, and that's when your legs fall asleep. The worst thing that ever happened to men furthering their education is social media, because
it's awful.
If I sit on the fucking toilet like Donald Trump on my, farting around on, I mean, I don't use Twitter, but fucking around on social media until my legs fall asleep, and then when I could be reading a good book is really
there's a comedian that says he said the iPhone isn't changing the way we think, it's just changing the way we shit.
Yeah, dude, one of my favorites was the closer to Louis C.K.'s I think it was called Oh My God, came out maybe 5 years ago or a little more, and he's talking about at the end it's just this brilliant analogy about, he's just saying these horrible things, but the way a mind reacts to, it was something about peanut allergies or something. And then he was like, of course we should have, labels on things so people with peanut allergies. And he's like, but if we all just look the way we're, no more peanut allergy, and everybody dies. No, and then he said something about slavery, and everyone's like, ooh, and he's like, look, you were with me on kids dying from peanuts. You don't get to cherry pick these. And it's just brutal, right? And he's going, but then he's like, but that was kind of the final bit, was he's talking about slavery being this timeless thing in one way or another, Egypt over here, or whatever. And then he was like talking about like you can either live comfortably, or you know what I mean, or you can either go out there and like whatever, and this and that, or you can like, you know, have someone else slaves, you know, 12 hours a day making this your iPhone or whatever,
right?
So you can sit on the toilet and leave mean comments on YouTube while you take a shit. And I was just like, that's the most brilliant fucking closer, like, and it's so true. It's so true. You know, it's like I think a lot of people were like naturally hypocritical, and it's easy to be when you're in a first world country. Like you can sit there and be like reaming everyone else on how they're so wrong and this and that and all their beliefs, and you're actually doing it on a tool that is produced by the very things you despise. You know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah.
You can't really win the argument in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you know, what is that quote from the Bible about whoever has not sinned throw the first stone? And there's a lot of
Right.
there definitely, I don't know if this has really changed. I mean, there's always been a ton of self-righteous people, but yeah, we definitely live in an age where people are self-righteous as shit.
And an expert on everything, right?
Right.
An expert on everything with no books by their toilet. See, that's where we've gone wrong. Is like you got all these people on the toilet chiming in on all this political stuff, but they don't actually have the book stack that our forefathers. Well, I say our forefathers. I mean, I guess they had like, you know, Thomas Jefferson's like reading in the fucking outhouse and shit. I don't know, but
no, he might have had a shelf and a candle in there. You never know.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like Ben Franklin was like burning fucking multiple candles when he took a shit, man. It's just absorbing knowledge.
I feel like you can always tell when somebody's actually intelligent by how little they claim to know about something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, for example, you know, I've had this experience recently where I was complimented on my guitar playing, you know, in a music podcast. Johnny Gowdy, I was on Johnny Gowdy's podcast, and he complimented my guitar playing, and I was just like, I can't believe that. I mean, I've never, you know, like I know, for example, like I've seen you play Skunk. I'm like, I am tolerable. That's the best way, as much as I describe it. But anyway, I guess I'm tooting my own horn here because in a couple of ways, which I didn't mean to do, but should use another example, less, you know, narcissistic.
No, I know exactly where you're going with this. Keep going.
But it's like, I feel like when I was, you know, when I wasn't as good at guitar, but I had thought I was getting good, you know, I was like, I'm good at this, you know, and then I actually got on the Austin scene. I'm like, I may never be good at this. Like, you know.
Okay. You just made me think of a couple of things on the guitar player front. See, like when you say that to me, or when anyone says that to me, I'm like, oh, thanks. I mean, you kind of like, right? And as you get more a seasoned performer speaking in that stuff, you learn to just be like, oh, thanks. Even though, you know, a lot of us, we get off stage and in our heads, we're like, my tone was fucked and I shanked that, my voice. Ah, thanks. Appreciate it so much. You know, let people have that moment, right? But I've noticed this too, but I'm never like, oh, I'm so amazing and that sounded so great. I'm like the opposite, and I've almost just like accepted my mediocrity, right? and I try to do like my best, and I know what my strong points are, and I'm like, yeah, I wasn't meant to be a virtuoso. I didn't put in that much time. I'm like okay at it, right? And then I have these friends, and this is what's so awesome is like, you know, people we've interviewed and lots of different people I've met over the years that are like total virtuosos, just amazing, stunning, significant, you know, guitar players that in my mind rank up there with anybody, right? And they're always like the nicest, most humble guys, like 9 times out of 10. They're super cool, unassuming, and they're very complimented. You know, they're always like wanting, I feel like true masters just want to keep learning and getting better and absorbing more and sharing that. And it's not about it being competitive at all, right? And usually, I think like you were saying, it's like when someone is at a level to where they feel, whether it's conscious or subconscious, maybe that they're not anywhere in that league and they feel like they have to compensate or somehow, you know what I mean? I feel like that's where the vanity comes in and the self-boasting, because that's always based on insecurity. It's always bullshit. And I'll just use the name Kanye West as an example of what seems to me to be the personification, or what's the word I'm looking for? The Singapore of that. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so unnecessary, right?
You know, I'll actually defend him a little bit. I think he's absolutely an example of somebody that is super arrogant, but I also think that's his shtick a little bit.
It is, and it's not a shtick that I enjoy, and I understand. Like, I like it if it's done maybe in a little more tongue-in-cheek way, where maybe you kind of get a sense that he's not taking himself that seriously, which he comes off as he is. Because when you throw the word genius around and people start going like just salivating, imbeciles that just regurgitate everything we hear, like Kanye West is a genius. Is he? Like, who's what? I've tried to like. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like Beethoven to me. Like, that's genius, like Freddie Mercury, that's genius.
No, I think Kanye's an interesting character for that very reason, because I wonder how much we would respect him if he didn't have so much to say about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I don't see, that's the thing, is I try to, when somebody has I don't think any human can truly do this. Like, I think the reality is we just, like, probably don't want Hitler brought up on a podcast, but like, if Hitler recorded a great album, like, you know what I mean? Like, would we be able to admit it? You know what I mean?
That's brilliant. That's such a great analogy. You're so right. Well, think about, this is an interesting thing. And Guns N' Roses was so fucking huge, and Axl Rose so huge and so controversial, yet, I mean, guys like me are still a fan. Billions of people around the globe fans of Guns N' Roses. And Axl always did these things that were grotesque and controversial, whether it was, using, language, the N-word and the F-word in a song, and then later down the line, they had a Charles Manson song on a fucking album. I think it might have been a hidden track or a final track on the Spaghetti Incident. Was an all-cover punk rock album, which was really cool, actually, in hindsight. And it's a good song, and it's weird. And he used to wear a Charles Manson shirt on stage. I don't know if to get a rise or maybe he respected. Who the fuck knows? But I look at that and I'm like, and I was like, I listened to the song. It's like, not a bad song, honestly. Right. But I don't want to fucking cover a Charles Manson song. But at the same time, and here I go, rant coming. Look, Vic's heard it 1,000 times before. We live in a culture that celebrates, I don't care what you say, it celebrates serial killers, that celebrates murder. It's on the news all the time. There's a billion serial killer document. So in that line of thought, it's like, we're so perverted, right? Like, you know what? Speaking of Hitler has, to this day, is more popular than anybody else. I mean, all just about, right? How many times you can turn on thousands of books and documentaries and this and that's about World War II and all the things that happened based on this madman, So his album probably would fucking sell. You know what I mean? But we're fascinated with evil and psychos.
I think it would, but like, I do think that Hitler is proof that the statement "any press is good press" is not exactly true. Like,
he was an artist. He was an art student, right? So he did do a couple of paintings.
Well, I heard he read a book a day too. I mean, I think Hitler was genius caliber, and then he just went absolutely fucking bananas. I mean, to put it lightly. I mean, clearly with but I mean, even aside from the obvious things of trying to commit genocide, I mean, the guy was his own worst enemy. Everything I've ever seen about it is like he collapsed his own empire, right? It's just horrific strategic decisions, not listening to anybody else around him, isolation. Let's just make this a podcast about the rise and fall of Hitler. Wait, I'm going to change our whole format.
Let me get Tim Kennedy on the phone and see if they found him. I don't know that guy.
No, I mean, that's an interesting point, Luke. And but it's weird, right? And Kanye is the perfect example of that. Kanye, and this is the way that our modern landscape behaves. It's like, I don't like Kanye, therefore Kanye is Hitler. Right, whatever I don't like is Hitler. You're so literally Hitler because you don't agree with me and you're not a vegan. I'm like, God, you're Hitler. You didn't vote for who I voted for. You're Hitler.
Right.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah. Well, and that's what I guess that's why, like, and like I'm sure I do the same thing, but like I'm kind of, I think that like Kanye sort of screwed himself over with how he, projected himself. He screwed himself over if we agree that his goal is to be generally loved. But I also don't think that he's a guy that particularly, I mean, I think he's intentionally provocative. I think he gets a big high off of.
I agree.
So it's like, the more that people are like, oh man, fuck, the guy's no genius. He's like, what? And actually this is a bizarre thing to bring up, but I'll bring it up because my dad's a psychologist. And he told me about this test, which is super fascinating. They basically
anally inserted test, right?
Yeah. So COVID, and No, he was explaining to me that this psychological survey done. It was kind of with exhibitionist guys that would open their trench coat to like young women and stuff, and they hired a model that was willing to, like some beautiful woman to basically be sort of the person that in this experiment they would have the exhibitionists expose themselves to, and they got all these guys to do this, and they asked her to respond in different ways to these men, and basically there were three general responses. One was, acting like, really, sexually excited by being shown, and then the other was the second one was basically acting repulsed. Oh, sorry. I guess there were four because there was kind of the ooh gross, like turning away, and then the other was like ridiculing him, like you have a small, you know what I mean. I don't know how vulgar I want to get on this podcast, but and then finally the other was just ignoring, and basically every response was every response except for ignoring them fed the fire. Like it excited the exhibitionist. So it didn't matter what they responded. He was like, "Great, you're responding." That's all. So I don't mean to compare Kanye to an exhibitionist, although.
Well, no, he is. I mean, and that's and you're right though. That's all. Any press is good press. I mean, except unless you're Hitler, I guess. But right? I mean, it's that whole thing about.
Right, it's always effective. I think it's true that any press is effective press. Like, but yeah, you can't control it once it gets past a certain point. And yeah, anyway,
I mean that's not entirely true because you've got there are certain lines you can't cross, and I mean we've seen celebrities crushed. I mean the Michael Richards fiasco was insane. Remember that shit?
No, what's that?
Oh man, from Kramer from Seinfeld.
Oh right.
Man, this has been a good 15 years now or something, and that was. Crazy. There and then shit. I mean, Kevin Spacey. I mean, there's a lot of them. That there is no recovery. I think Louis C.K. is like maybe lucky enough to where he can bounce back because he only just jacked off in front of some. I don't know.
He had a good bit
really
about
weird.
That too.
Yeah.
I saw his special after. I mean, look, I think, I mean, it's the sort of thing I'm afraid to even like bring up on a podcast, but here we go. I mean, I think that's an example of somebody that, there was no. I think we have to decide: are we going to trust our legal system or not? He was not convicted of anything. Everything was consensual. Do I think it's gross? Like, is it a model to emulate? No, I do think that society has a responsibility, or society will tell you what's okay, and.
That's also an individual responsibility on his part, though.
Right. Which I don't exactly. I don't think that like society should be like, totally defend his behavior, even though it's not. Like, I think we all have a sense that like that's a morally reprehensible sort of thing, but at the end of the day, like people that are just like he has to lose his job for this or something. It's like, look, like there's plenty, There's plenty of built-in, that's humiliating. I mean, it's not it's something you'll never probably bounce back from fully. I mean, you're always going to have that mar on your record. But if we don't agree as society that, what he did is legal, we can't like go about, maliciously destroying his career any further than the basically the sort of the public humiliation already has. And that's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, that just recently happened to Gina Carano, right? And she wasn't jacking off in front of anybody, so she was just.
It's just like cancel culture stuff, right? Like you fuck up, and we're gonna bury you, and we're gonna delete all your.
The thing is, she really didn't even do anything egregious, right? She was just kind of stating like, "Hey, be good to each other, don't narc on each other," right?
Wait, was she? Sorry, forgive me. I'm. Was she the Star Wars actress?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What's the down low on that, Vic? Because I didn't read the. anything past the headline.
Yeah. So I guess on one of her social media, or I don't know, Instagram, Twitter, she shared a post that somebody else had posted, but basically it was a picture of a Jewish woman being chased by kids, World War II, right? Germany. And the caption was that, during World War II, the Germans, basically the neighbors ratted out the people ratted out their neighbors that were Jews, right? So even to the point where the kids were like attacking them, right? So pretty historical, factual event, right? So basically it was, don't let political divide turn you into this. It's essentially just, that's what it was. And then people conflated that to, she's saying that Republicans are being treated like Jews, like out of nowhere, like the mob just kind of jumped up and made their own narrative. And so she ended up getting fired. So that was the thing. Wow. And she's been known for standing her ground and not bowing to the mob, because I think they were giving her crap for.
Now, when you say the mob, is that like the elitist, the baby eaters and the Hollywood baby eaters, pizza gators?
I would say anybody that the virtue signalers, right?
Sways public opinion in the name of virtuous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Crucifies others when they don't follow that little line of
people that are pointing fingers that don't realize they have three fingers pointing back at them. Right. So, yeah. So, they've been giving her shit for a while. And I think the one of the things that they talk about was that she is, that she isn't for like the LGBT or whatever, basically that community, right? Because of the fact that she wouldn't put pronouns in her bio. Right. And so they were demanding that she put her pronouns in there, and she was like, no, So I don't know. It's really crazy stuff.
I tell you what is crazy is, see, we're not celebrities, so I feel like it doesn't matter that much. But when you get to that place, like that's got to be so much pressure, because you have to, walk on eggshells, and you have to kind of almost be in this club or that club. And that defeats the whole purpose of this country of being a free thinker, that's allowed to express different thoughts and opinions and ideas and questions.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's hard. It's not an easy thing to, I don't know. Those are not easy waters to navigate. Luke, you got opinions here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, something on the, I feel like a lot of this is probably overstated in what I'm about to say. But like that tweet, based on what you're telling me, I think there's a quote that's like, the most creative human act is the ability to see something as something else. Basically our ability to see metaphor. And it's crazy to me that, people can't, like, you make a comparison and people are like, oh, so you mean it's exactly that? It's like, no, she's saying there is a similarity to be drawn. Like, like it's just like people don't, what is it? Steel man, because a straw man, whatever, when you make a weak version of the other person's argument and tear it down, it's like, that's not what she said. And anyway, it's just such a ridiculous thing. It's kind of like the things you say in a car, to somebody, that you would never tell them to their face,
Yeah,
that's the thing. If you ever tour with a band, it doesn't. I don't think it matters who the people are and what the style. If you're, in that situation, right, you're close with people and you're hanging out in a vehicle or whatever for a long period. From my personal experience, the most heinous, horrible things are said, and it's none of it's serious. It's just joking around. But I know that we have all different people of all different ethnicities and sexes and everything. Just horror. And I've got best friends that I've known for years and years, and we just, every single one of our jokes are just horrible, but it's joking. It's a joke,
right.
And you say all those things because it's this, you're kind of poking fun at how ridiculous it all is, right, in a way. But boy, if anyone ever caught wind of one of those tour conversations or my text thread with certain people on my phone, Jesus, you know what I mean? But I think we're all like that. Like,
we are.
Most people are, except for the true nut job crusaders who don't even know what their own cause is at this point. They just want to burn everyone else at the stake, you know?
Right. Well, sorry, go ahead, Vic.
No, I was just going to mention that, there's a lot of dark humor that military, first responders, EMS, police, there's a lot of dark humor that goes on there. And, I still use it. Right.
Yeah. Same.
It's just, and, it's just a way of coping with when times get tough, right? When you have no avenue to do anything else, it's either do something really screwed up or make a really dark joke about it, laugh and just move on. Right. And people don't get that. I kind of bringing back to what you were saying, that people were kind of reading into something that wasn't there. Right. That reminded me, I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, but he had that interview with, what was her name?
Kathy
BBC
Newman?
Host Kathy Newman,
Yeah.
right? So anytime he would say something, she would come back and she goes, "So what you're saying is," and like totally, do the strongman argument, just like you said, right?
Yeah. And he was so good at clarifying. No, it's actually not what I said. And it's kind of also this thing where, like, if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I say something, because I'm just coming up with shit on the fly, and they're like, "Well, you said this earlier." I'm like, "Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, that's not what I meant to say, or I don't actually agree with that." And it's like they try to get you. It's like, well, I'm human, so like this is Anyway, the other piece of all this, kind of what you were saying a moment ago, Skunk, about how do you do it, all that pressure and all that, and I mean, at least something that I've observed, and maybe you guys have too, but there are people that have kind of. So I don't know if you've listened to Adam Carolla. Surely you podcasters have listened to the Godfather podcast, but he talks about how he has a pirate ship, and basically it's like, of course, he said 1,000 things that are cancelable. It's very vulgar, humorist, but this, I don't know, like. Because it depends what channel you use. I mean, some people, I think Patreon, for example, is a great platform, and I've heard of people, and I have many friends that are on it, but I have heard of people. I don't know if this is true, but I believe that they have booted people off. So, like, that would be an example of a place where you would hope, basically you could just use it, and as long as you had subscribers, it's like no matter what people are saying, Twitter mobbing you, it's like, well, the people that are paying you through Patreon are still paying you, and so you can keep what's afloat. And I sense that people are moving more and more. I think the numbers are reflecting that. Like big network television doesn't have the numbers it used to. People are watching. Yeah. Joe Rogan. They're watching other things.
Yeah. Well, the boycott Disney was trending recently after they fired Gina Carano, right? So. I guess they're noticing, but I don't know if they're going to do anything about it.
Dude, I cannot believe that Disney has not been canceled by mass media. I listened to the podcast Kurt Metzger, Can't Get Right with Kurt Metzger, hilarious comedian, and he on one of the episodes they pull up China's poster for Star Wars, the one they released in China. And the difference is they removed aside from the Chinese lettering, they've removed all the black people from the poster.
Yep.
That Disney did that. Like how, like this is the Disney Plus that, generally is saluted as, kind of, American brand. And I think my understanding is Bohemian Rhapsody also was made different. It was cut differently for China, and it removed any mention of him being a gay man. I mean, that's like those deals were signed and made with China. Like it's wild to me.
Yeah, there was controversy around the Mulan movie, right, where they filmed it, because they filmed it on location, but they filmed it in that province where, and Ben Shapiro made this comment when they fired Gina Carano, right? Because he goes, I usually don't like people using the Holocaust to kind of, reference, make comparisons, right? But they fire her for a factual event, but then they go and film Mulan in an area of China where they're detaining, these Muslims, right? And, just doing all sorts of stuff to them. And that's where they film Mulan. And so in the credits, it says, thanks to the, government or this province, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's really crazy stuff going on.
It seems to be like when you get at any high up corporation or a politician, regardless of allegiance to Republican, Democrat, whatever the case may be, right? There's always dirt under the fingernails, right? So really, to be fair, anyone that's slinging it the other way, I mean, they're covered in it too. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
that's the disturbing part, is when you get so much spin, right, from whatever your preferred media outlets that you dive into are, and it can be argued as to what's the more mainstream and not. But I think there's some balance still there, right? But clearly they're spun, and then you buy into that shit, and that's what blows me away, is like, just using the highest level politicians, presidents, or whatever as an example. But it's the same for all of this stuff we're talking about. It's like it's just weird to me the way someone will just follow blindly with so much support with one thing and wanting to crush something else. And really they're, they both kind of end up a lot of times at exactly what you just mentioned. There's just it's just riddled with hypocrisy. And maybe it's at that level, maybe it's almost inevitable, right? How are you going to do world business without that? Well, I mean, I'm not justifying it, but I wish people could be a little more, if you're gonna fight fair, and like really, don't just pick and choose because it's convenient, for you. And that's usually what happens, right? It's convenient for some personal agenda you probably don't even really know a lot about sometimes.
Right. Well, it's, I think, yeah, I tend to, I like to live by this idea that evil is evil, that there is scummy shit that shouldn't be done. And I don't know, I do think that there's moral complexity to things. Like if you're shooting a movie, for example, and you're shooting in a place, it's not necessarily your job to deal with their country issues. So is working with that country, when you're not a military force, is it your responsibility to fix their government problems? I don't know. Maybe you should boycott the use of that country.
Right. Why shoot there in the first place, right?
Right.
If that's the case.
For sure. I guess I'm not saying I know the answer here, but I'm just trying to think of like, it's what really annoys me mostly is sort of the inconsistency. Like if you're going to be a finger pointer, then, it's kind of like what you said, Vic, and, you got three fingers pointing back at yourself.
Right.
Like, of course we're all going to fuck up. And some fuck ups are, punish, there's no going back from them. But, anyway, we circle back to the...
Yeah. Yeah. On a positive note, I think Gina Carano signed a deal to produce and do movies with Ben Shapiro's group, who they recently migrated from California to Nashville. So they've already released a movie with Thomas Jane that's actually pretty good, and it's got some good response, right? It's nothing. It's just a movie, It's just yeah, nothing political, no agenda, or anything. It's just a movie, like what people want to see. And so she got picked up by those guys. I kind of hope, because I have a crush on her, that she just goes around, knocks the rust off the MMA skills, and just goes and beats people's asses. But I don't know. That's just me.
It seems like this is the music industry, the movie industry. I feel like at a big higher, Washington federal level, obviously, in the big elitist, maybe that's not the right word, but the big companies, the big corporations, the big wigs in Washington, this shit's got to be troubling to them because it's their loss of power. But there's a lot of decentralization happening, or the want of that to happen, right, across the board: music, movies, currency, etc. And and that's why, right? If you can't fucking be your own person, and you're going to get shut down and canceled with any human mistake, like Luke said. I mean, well, what other choice do you have than to sort of go a more independent route? And it seems like fortunately, a lot of those avenues are out there. But then again, it's the same way for the indie musician now, right? Because I mean, there is Patreon, which is different. There is Bandcamp, which seems pretty cool. But if you're doing the Spotify and this and that, I mean, you're still one. There's at the end of the day, like everything, always kind of something it'll rearrange itself, but there's always going to be something that's the huge, all-powerful thing at the top, right? Like, I guess that's Apple Music and Spotify right now for music, and it's
Bro Country,
Amazon,
right?
Well, yeah, Bro Country. That's really why Luke left Nashville.
Please do not stir up my native shame.
All right, now we're getting to the truth.
Yeah, no, I actually
brought it back.
I went on a rant about Bro Country today. You know what?
Oh, I love it.
I have no problem with like trash music that's trying to get a buck. I think the pop industry has been full of that, and pop has great music, and then it has stuff. But it never claimed to be anything more. It's like, we're pop,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But country, the whole point is like, even though the music is simple, the voice is out of tune, which, by the way, I love, like Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash. I don't think they're like, for example, Johnny Cash. You wouldn't pick him to sing it
so great.
I know, right? You wouldn't pick him to sing the solo in a choir, but in this genre, it works perfectly because there's a sense of grit and authenticity, and like when you like, I don't know, it's just like Taylor Swift. It's like, just admit that you're pop now. Like she shifted, which whatever. I actually think she's a relatively authentic writer from where it comes. I can't relate very much to it, but anyway.
I have no problem with those big pop stars like her. I mean, it is what it is, and it's always going to be an industry like that in one way or another, right? It's going to change, but it's always going to be there. But like you said, what I hate about the bro country thing, particularly, is that it is so far detached from, like, it's gross to anybody who actually likes the true genre of country, right? Storytelling and heartfelt, communicative, music that's supposed to be based on raw human feelings and emotion, like Hank Williams or Johnny Cash or Waylon Jennings or whatever the case may be. Man, I love that stuff. It's amazing. And but now, not only is it okay, fair enough, you're stepping into it's the 21st century and all these new tools exist and everything's got to be commercially perfection, and so there's the production aspect of it I can kind of deal with. But then on the other, the problem I think is not so much there's that, but literally I'm like, they got guys in lab coats sitting there going, this has to be this BPM and it has to be this long for this, and the content has to be, then you have to say the word boots 3 times and you have to fucking wear a cowboy, all this formulaic shit. And not only that, now they're trying to go like, and how can we get it? Okay, you need exactly 6 tattoos and 1 face tattoo and a black cowboy hat, and we have to have a rap that's 23 seconds in the middle of this song and just this amount of auto-tune, and this person has to suck this producer's dick. It's the most pathetic, disgusting bullshit.
I know.
Here's Jim Irsay.
It's ridiculous.
Copy
Pick a
his
fucking genre.
Dress like Jim Irsay from the Colts.
It's fucking embarrassing.
Well, dude, and and I'll say this: like, look, things morph. Like, for example, like the folk tradition, as it originated, I guess in Scotland and Ireland, it's changed quite a bit. And, I'm sure that every step along the way, there have been purists that have said, this has gone too far. And so I can't deny that, like, this is just where it's gone. And I'm not going to say it's not country, because technically it loosely, upholds, it carries the thread, however loosely, of what came before it. But I guess all I'm saying is it's particularly offensive to my taste, and like, whereas I thought like an annoying pop song was like the most, one of the most offensive things to my ear. It's like, no, here's something that's even
I think
more grating.
Bro country and mumble rap seem to bout it out for the heavyweight title of most annoying genre.
Right.
They just added a twang to it and called it bro country, right?
Back to, by the way, great job, Luke, of speaking eloquently and arbitrarily, which is something I'm clearly incapable of. But I was going to say, Vic, when we had Jerry Connolly on the show, and he drew that line between the origins of hip hop and the boroughs and the Bronx and stuff like that to early country, kind of music. And I thought that was such a cool parallel you wouldn't really think of. But the whole point of it was people singing or rapping or whatever the case may be about what they knew and using the tools that they knew and they had. And it was an authentic music that was based on and appealed to those in their surroundings, and that's something that grew and became popularized. And inevitably with anything, once it does, it's going to change and morph. It has to. And when something can be profited on, then that'll never go back, And so there isn't a certain acceptance to that, but I think it could be done with some sort of integrity. And some people do it, and that's the difference. Some people do it with integrity, and some people don't. Like James Stapleton is amazing. Gary Clark Jr. is amazing, in my opinion, right? In a lot of people's opinions. So, and they're highly successful, and I think that they keep, there's something fresh that comes out of those artists, but they're genuine artists, and they can actually back it up with genuine songs and genuine chops and singing and emotion and have something to say, which is, I don't know the bro country roster, but when you're, and hey, good for them, they're millionaires and they get a bunch of pussy or whatever.
They apparently make, and maybe this is obvious to you, but like country music now makes more than apparently pop and rap combined.
Oh.
Like it's,
I bet country and Christian probably are the highest markets.
Yeah, clear and away. Yeah, and it's funny.
Hip hop.
I have this like kind of narcissistic thought. Oh, I have many of these, but
that means you're Hitler.
Damn it! I mean,
I'm Hitler again.
How did this happen?
From Singapore.
Yeah. Did y'all know Hitler was
a lesser known Hitler. No, so what I was going to say is I have this thought that like when the market is flooded with a lot of, kind of precisely because record labels are so, which by the way, I have sympathy for them, like the music industry that is trying to hold on for dear life and does have to like, it has to do risk mitigation, It can't be like, all right, Michael Jackson's going to carry these 10
I almost feel like
projects.
I almost feel like that's a mistake, though. I mean, what do I know? I mean, what do I know? But I feel like they should take a chance on some other stuff. I think they're fucking up by playing it so safe sometimes, right? Anyway, continue.
No, I agree. I wonder, could they do a better job? Could they find a way to take risks? Less risk. I know that sounds weird, but like, it definitely appears like they're not even trying. But I guess what I mean to say is, I would argue that there's a vacuum created. Like, I don't know. I mean, sure, people's tastes are getting cultivated. I don't know how true that is, though. I do think that I think that there's almost an opportunity for if you decide to be that person that hones your craft and reads and practices your instrument and like pulls from old traditional music. I think it's almost there's even more of an opportunity to set yourself apart in a way. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's kind of the mission I've tried to take on is like. People are presumably starving for the content that we're all complaining isn't out there. So go and make it, and dude,
it's insane. Just here in Austin, it's like every freaking, I hear artist after artist after artist. I'm going like, this is amazing. It's great songs, great lyrics, great hooks, great production, everything brilliant, all of it Grammy worthy. And you're like, and that's one city. I mean, there's millions of amazing artists out there, and they are all flying under the radar. And it's always this. It's just this political thing, or it's like these higher ups making all these decisions. So in that sense, I mean, I'm kind of for the complete demise of the industry.
We were listening to this stuff from Lubbock too, right?
Yeah, killer.
Killer stuff.
Yeah, Vic sent me a playlist of Lubbock artists, and like everything was just amazing.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
it all sounds. And nowadays, you know, you have people can get in relatively affordable to pro studios, pro gear, work with people. There's lots of producers and engineers will work with the little guys. You know, I mean, we're probably the ones that are a bigger, you know, or a good percentage of their income, right? You know, so it's like you can make these great products, and there's just so much of this, and it's so sad that it just like so much of it just gets so minimal representation.
You talked about people's tastes, you know, just kind of changing, cultivating. One interesting thing I found on my little YouTube, you know, deep dives is that I'm finding a lot of people, you know, and I would probably classify them as, you know, more of hip hop, you know, type of, you know, people that listen to hip hop, you know, a specific genre, and they're doing videos where they're reacting to like these old classics, like, you know, Fleetwood Mac, The Chain, or they're listening to like Black Betty, you know, you know, I can't remember the band's name, but
Are you talking about reaction videos?
Reaction videos, right?
Like those guys Lost in Vegas, like that's a really
exactly.
popular one. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So there's a ton of those channels popping up, and you know, they're listening to these songs for the first time. And so I go back and I watch the reaction. I'm like, oh yeah, they're picking up on stuff I didn't even think of before. But it's just like this really cool. It's really cool to see, you know, that type of reaction to like some of the classics that people aren't doing anymore, right? Just like The Chain.
It's still all super valid and like huge.
Yeah.
Right. It's you know, and I have this other thought too, which is kind of a little more cynical. I mean, because I think, you know, I'm gonna lump us all in the same generation.
Please do.
Yes. We are all the same age.
I was born in 1990. Yep.
Yes.
Fact.
You know, like I feel like we grew up seeing these idols of kind of this golden age of music. And, you know, when I think about how long, you know, recorded sound has even been around, it's like this is a blip. Like the way, I mean, and I'm actually reading a book about the history of folk, because it's, you know, I'm kind of having to make myself right. I'd rather just read, you know, comedy or something, but it is proving to be pretty fascinating. Kind of like I guessed. Once I got into it, I knew I would probably. So it's just like, you know, musicians used to make, you know, not very much money. I mean, like they would almost always, you know, if you were a beloved musician, like patrons would take care of you, and you'd kind of find a place to stay if you're like one of these roving musicians, and you never want for, you know, like for a place to stay, and you know, you always had this weird equality with the upper class. Not equality, but you had this weird, like, you could brush shoulders with people that you weren't otherwise able to brush shoulders with this kind of magic of music. And, you know, I've heard it argued that, you know, it's basically once the album, you know, selling records no longer was this cash cow. You know, things started to just normalize, kind of back to something closer to like what it used to be. And I do think you can still be really clever because, you know, there are obviously artists that do make a killing by being really wily businessmen, and it's one of the best times to do it. But, you know, I'm trying to, like, it's a really tough pill to swallow, but it's also like, you know, we idolize this era where there were a few people that just, you know, got to live as gods, you know, make all this money off of something. And it wasn't, you know, I hate to say it, but it's not necessarily because those people were, you know, as, you know, uniquely fantastic as we make them out to be. Because, like, yeah, we meet musicians that are like, yeah, you meet musicians, you're like, you're insanely good. Like, if you brought this out, you know, in the 60s, you know, with a record producer with, you know, a gleam in his eye, you know, like, kid, come with me, you know, like he'd pick you right up. So anyway.
No, yeah, I was going to say this earlier, and you just kind of brought it back around to. There's a great clip on YouTube or whatever of a Zappa interview, and he's talking about, he's like, what happened in the 60s was so great, I guess, paraphrasing obviously, but because you had these old dudes who didn't really know what was hip, right? And they were like, all right, we'll try this. We'll take, and they tried different shit. Not everything from fucking the Beatles, which was a little earlier, but to the Mothers of Invention, this was like really, who the fuck had heard that before? You know what I mean? Like, who had heard any of that kind of stuff these guys were doing? And I don't know how many bands were doing it. I guess there was a lot, and everyone was going to follow trends, but they were really cutting edge. Recording technology was relatively new. The idea of a rock band was really new. Like, all these things, and it all kind of exploded at once. But the point being, in terms of what he said about the industry moguls, right? That fat cats at the tops of the record corporations that were willing to take a chance on these artists and see what happened. Whereas now I feel like that is absolutely not going to happen because, like you said, it's absolutely calculated. They don't want to take any risks. Maybe they can't afford to take the risks. And so we just kind of keep getting the same, the same bottle of pop, which is, like you said, I'm not one of these, I hate everything that's not Slayer. That's ridiculous. Like, I love all kinds of music, and I think there's great pop music from the past and still today and across the board with all kinds of genres, but we just get such a small representation of it. And that's the issue, right? Is that instead of seeing Taylor Swift nominated for a Grammy every year for 15 years, it'd be nice to see some other names pop up, Right. But I just don't think, I think there's this people at the top of the food chain that just like, it doesn't matter that there's another 1,000 or 2,000 nominees that are, no one's listening to that shit. No one's
right. Well, that's
their team's not paying people to vote for it or whatever. I'm just speaking of one thing with the Grammys and all that kind of shit. But I mean, that's what we get, fed in the mainstream, and it just kind of seems to be the same things over and over. When there's thousands of songwriters that are as good, if not better,
Right. Well, I think it is sad, regardless of even though it's a good thing that like people have been able to go underground, so to speak, and like, be on their pirate ships. It is kind of sad. We used to kind of have a unified society around like, we all love the Beatles, or if you were edgy, you could like the Rolling Stones instead or whatever. But either way, there was kind of a kind of like what I think many would argue is like kind of the good aspect of social uniformity. It's kind of like a glue that held everybody together. And now like the glue that is kind of being thrown out just doesn't stick very well. Like what people, like like what big labels put out, everybody's like, like,
yeah.
And I remember
it almost makes me wonder I mean, look, and here's the thing, you got to be fair because I do see artists sometimes or, so-and-so's nominated for a Grammy and I'll hear one song and you're just like, and that's your knee-jerk reaction. It's almost like you want to have it and you're not impressed enough. And it's like trying to follow up Appetite for Destruction or the Black Album. You're never going to be able to do it anyway, right? So you're never going to be able to top the Beatles and Michael Jackson or whatever. So, you got to be fair. And then a lot of times that I'll hear that artist do something else or I'll hear more of their catalog or I'll see them many times perform live. And that's when you're really blown away. Right. And so it's not that these artists, most of the time not all of them, I think, but I think a lot of them, they are really fucking good.
Yeah.
They are amazing, but like you said, I almost feel like that we're somehow though served particular artists that it's almost like they want the wrong type of visceral reaction from us and they bank on that. It's like they know that the young demographic that is just gonna the flock of sheep that's just gonna buy records, like not buy records physically anymore, but stream or watch the YouTube videos like we used to go to record stores, because that's just what teenagers do. They know they've got them by the balls no matter what, right? And then the rest of us, it's almost like they want us to just hate it, so we'll talk about it. And,
right.
It's weird. Like, look at Cardi B. Like, that's such a weird fucking thing.
I
right?
know. You're so right.
Like, who would put that out as a fucking pop star?
You're so right, because I'm the guy that when people start to rip on Kanye, I'm like, okay, I get it, but here's my defense. Look, I don't bother to do it with Cardi B, and it's
I feel like they looked at his model and said, this works. Okay, who's next?
Right.
They don't give a shit about giving us the Beatles. They don't give a shit about giving us Frank Zappa. And it's like, no, we want to fuck whatever is going to ruffle your. either you're going to buy it because we tell you to buy it and you don't know any better, or we're going to ruffle your fucking feathers enough where you're just going to keep on talking about it like we're doing on this podcast, and they win,
right?
I guess.
Like, honestly, yeah, like, the more I can be like the old man who shrugs his shoulders and is like, I guess that's what they're doing now, huh? Okay. Like, like, and just, like
no reaction is the best reaction, like you said, to the flasher. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going to look at Cardi B's penis. I'm not going to do it.
We'll leave out the hashtags for Cardi B and her penis.
Cardi B penis.
Right. No,
there's a new hashtag.
No,
we'll just put in Gina Carano.
Well, that was like the
better penis.
And that's kind of like Ben Shapiro did the WAP video or whatever. They got one kind of viral. He like did a reading of the WAP lyrics. Are you aware of that?
Did.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one.
And like he got all this crap because he would say the P word instead of pussy, like, and so it's kind of look like a wiener, and it's also kind of like you kind of feel like, Ben, you just got trolled, man. Like they were just dying for you to like skyrocket this even more by being like, what's wrong with the world today? It's that new Cardi B WAP.
Yeah,
and
it's not that much different than the Madonna sex book back in the day, right? I feel like
it's the same.
I feel like there was like a Charlton Heston reading of that on SNL or something. It was hilarious, just something ridiculous, whatever.
Right. So I mean, it is kind of like, it is almost. I like the way you put that. It's bait. It's like,
yeah,
they're just trying to get you to bite, and so even, and that's where I think they are clever. Like like. We don't realize sometimes, like, maybe I don't give credit to, just
because you're clever doesn't mean you're good, though, right? Like,
well, for sure.
Yeah. Hitler was clever at one point,
Right. Well,
see, the music industry is Hitler. See what I just did there?
Are you saying? Wait, so let me get this straight, Skunk.
It's a musical holocaust.
So you're saying, without any further inspection or giving you any chance to clarify arguments, so I'm just going to assume you're saying this. Yeah.
Yes. Now go retweet it.
Yeah, that's right.
Get me canceled.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm just kind of having this like Matrix moment of like, holy shit! Like, here we're saying that the powers that be, the large record labels and the people pulling strings, as we all think, are like they're tasteless. And it's like, well, that may be true. It's like, maybe they're not going for taste. Like,
they're not. I think that's it. And I think that I just nailed it here on this podcast. Me, Skunk Manhattan. So I love like having these conversations and just kind of thinking about these things, because I think that kind of seems to me to be somewhat the case, and it works, right? When you're always you poke someone to get a rise, and it works. But I think the real same way with politics, with anything, the real power still lays with the people. It's the people that fail us. We fail ourselves, because if we don't like that, why? And I'm guilty of it this exact moment. I'm not talking about all the awesome artists I just listened to from Austin, Texas this week. We're sitting here talking about fucking Cardi B and Kanye West. So it's my fucking fault right now.
We're part of the problem, damn it. Let's delete this.
We are. And I think this is like the most important thing I'll ever say on this podcast. And I'm taking your podcast to do it. So whatever that, either you're welcome or I'm sorry. But I think that this, and Luke, you gotta feel this. And I feel like most of our colleagues probably do, because we're all out there and we can go, yeah, we want to create good commercially viable products. So there's nothing wrong, I think, with like, you want to try to work with the best and get what you want musically, that has the balance of artistic integrity and sonic quality, et cetera, right? There's that aspect of the money well spent, right? Even if there's no return, because you care as an artist to put something out that sounds good, right? But post that, if you want to get into being heard and you want to look into all the things that would really entail in a business sense, the marketing and the this and the PR and the that. I mean, money, right? For what? For like a very extremely slim chance of any sort of return or success, right? Whatever those words may even mean. They mean different things to different people. But the point is, I feel like I've done this and I've given up because it feels gross. You're kind of like, and this is why like Patreon and stuff like that is so vital. Like you said, I read this too, and I think it's totally reverted back to the prior days of the record industry, where it was a business more in that. And some artists have really capitalized on that, and some have not. But the people, like, you got to have a fan base of supporters that first actually see your content, which is extremely hard when you're dealing with all these algorithms and these various social media outlets. So you got to get them in a place where they're even going to see your content. That's step one. Most people don't even see our fucking shit, right? Two is like, I feel like so many times, like, I've done this, and I feel like almost like embarrassed, or it's stupid, or it's a waste of time, and it's not how it's supposed to be when you're an artist. And, hey, do you mind sharing this? Hey, do you mind this? Hey, do you mind that? I don't think that from a fan's perspective, they understand the immense value that power that they actually have. Because if every one of your friends and fans, when you put something out, shared it, wrote about it, talked about it like it was the next goddamn Metallica album, it would mean something, but they don't. A, they don't see it. B, they forget. They don't have the time. You're just their buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. And, so I think it's like you as a grassroots network could make us all money.
Well, I was going to say, see the hypothetical artist, certainly not you or me, but doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to actually, be self-promotional in the way that we perhaps ought to be.
Well, it sucks. Like, who wants to do that? Again, that's why you have managers and and PR,
right?
To go out there and be like, hey, did you listen to my new? How many times have I done that? People don't give a fuck. I have like 3 people that, I mean, I know I sound old and jaded and whatever, but I think it's true. People are busy. They have lives, especially the older you get. People have kids and families. Like, do they really give a flying fuck about my latest mix? Right? I mean, like you said, like, well, they do if you're a part of a community and pay for it. But like, or a Facebook page, I felt like that actually helps. A group. But like most places, I don't think they see the content or they don't care. And not to mention, we're getting bombarded by it, like by everyone and their grandma every day, right?
Right.
And there's no discretion between like your buddy who just made an awesome sub sandwich and someone who just put out an album. It's all treated the same. You know what I mean? Like, how the fuck can you compete with that?
Right.
I do love those sandwiches though, man.
Yeah, like, Luke, let's be honest, like, and maybe you have more success than me. I think most people do, which is fine. But like, if you put out a piece of music, if we simultaneously post 2 things and one of them says like, hey, check out my new music, and then there's a link, algorithms are going to kill that thing, right? You're going to get a handful of likes. Maybe I'm wrong, right? And a couple of awesome, and I post a picture of an amazing sub sandwich, and I'm going to get 100 likes. And that looks so fucking good. And I just want to put that in my big fat consumer mouth so bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
now.
Are you talking about
it's working on Vic.
Are you talking about a sub here? No, I'm kidding.
I was using a metaphor, right? Okay. Draw whatever line you want and make that line fact. That line will be fact.
Oh man. Yeah, I think if
I wrote songs as good as I blabbed, I'd be famous. It's my own fault.
Well, I think what I noticed in myself is I feel very fortunate to kind of, have the people I work with, my bandmates that are a little better at the business side of things, particularly my drummer, who just is very good at, maintaining a business plan without getting emotional, because my thought is like, I see, I post something, I'm like, oh, they didn't get as many likes as the last one. And even though I'm not the kind of person that even like really lives as though he cares, I think I just kind of like take my foot off the gas a little bit. And I don't do as much because I'm like, but my drummer is like, it's great. Like, we don't give credit enough to people that are able, like, we always tend to glorify the emotional artist, which I totally am in many ways, like mercurial, right? Like, oh, I had a good day, I had a bad day, and just kind of the people that are kind of cold and just drive ahead, because that's what marketing is. I mean, and frankly, even with our favorite artists, Michael Jordan, it must be getting late for me. Michael Jordan and Babe
Luke,
Ruth.
a connoisseur of pop music.
Michael Jordan,
the Michael Jordan Thriller album was amazing.
But anyway, they had a machine pushing that shit forward. I mean,
right, yeah.
And so you have to kind of be your own machine. So I try to like, I think this is a Jordan Petersonism, but he talks about, why is it so hard to be successful creative? It's because, you have these two traits. You have industriousness and you have openness. And sort of this ability to or I think it's conscientiousness and openness. And conscientiousness is this ability to like stick with this, kind of stick with things, move forward. And people high in conscientiousness are great CEOs, and being high in openness is kind of to say fuck it to sort of what I have to do, and you remain incredibly open, and it allows you to be so, to write a song like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, right? But that very same trait, if you can't shut it off and then go proceed to be somebody that pushes things forwards, if you can't get good at closing one valve and opening the other, like, and that's an exhausting thing to do. Like, you have to really get good at it. It seems like somebody like Prince, he might have killed himself doing. I mean, one could argue, but like,
yeah,
he was. I mean, he was switching valves constantly. And yeah, it's like the more is asked of us nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy and example with Prince. I think it's huge. In the modern, and almost like maybe guys like that were kind of ahead of their time. You know what I mean? To be that proactive and sort of doing it all. In a lot of ways. I mean, that guy was running the show on every level, seemingly, right? And I guess there's been a lot of artists like that, but nowadays I think it's like more and more like the illusion. I feel sorry for anyone that has like some sort of dream of the old model of like, and maybe that generation is dying out, right? That will not be a thing that the younger generation would even understand anyway. But, oh yeah, man, we're going to fucking jam and write songs and we're going to be famous. It's going to be awesome. And we'll go in the studio. And basically, because you got these glory stories that are all romanticized and somewhat true, but a band goes and they create this incredible music. But other than that, they're just laying around getting drunk, shit in their pants and getting babysitted, and everyone else is going out there and doing all this stuff, right? And I think that's a half truth. A lot of times, a lot of these bands, though, huge bands, they still went out there and hustled. And I read about Guns N' Roses, and they were fucking hustled, man. Before ever. So you're right. I think in a band, that's extremely important. Having a team, because to do it as one person is exhausting at best, right? So to have a team definitely helps. But where you do have those different components and valves, that's a great analogy that can sort of like know when it's time, or there's this person or this time or whatever this is the creative time, and then you shut that off and you're like, this is business and marketing, and then like, yeah, so much of it I think you have, because it is hard as an artist, right? And that brain capacity and that valve to shut that off and be cold and calculated and not get bogged down on the numbers. And I think that's probably what kills so many people, unfortunately, or kills the desire, right? So my hat's off to anyone who just makes music for the sake of making music and loving music. I know that I've had all kinds of different cases in my own life where sadly I've just gotten completely detached from it and not felt like it or had motivation to do it. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, if you don't like doing it, that's a problem right there. Like, you need to love doing it first and foremost, and then figure everything out, right? So, and I find that all the time, that when I just, that's where teaching can actually be sort of cool. Sometimes I just do that, or I just, when I do something fresh, almost when I'm forced to do something, it makes me fall in love with music and playing music again. It gets me out of that space of like worrying about what I'm going to do with my own crap that hasn't even been finished anyway. Right?
Right. Dude, well, and it's funny because one of the things I've realized is like, because my first realization was with teaching, I was like, it was very gratifying. I was like, oh, finally I can have it attached, mindset, because I see music in this other way. But I'm also realizing that, I need to extend the metaphor a bit further and like have things besides music. Like, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And like, I'd say, where I find myself lately is like, I need to get away and do things that don't matter. Like, that I cannot trace in any way, if it's possible, back to like some way of furthering career or something, like, because I can even say, oh, with teaching, I'm refining my skills, and it's like, there I go again. Like, it's just all part of this same mechanism. And I think it's a particularly consuming career because it blurs a lot of lines in your life. It's the one career, one of the few careers you can talk about at a party. So, you see other people have this neat separation in their life where they're like, all right, that's work shit. We're talking about other shit, you know, and it's harder.
I've been there so many times, and it's awful. Like you're not even enjoying yourself on a vacation because you're like, oh, I gotta try to who owns this bar? You know what I mean? Like how can I get booked here? And all this shit.
Yeah, totally.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, you've got to learn to shut that shit off. For me, actually teaching for me, I feel like has become one of the better ways I can do it because when I'm doing that, it used to cause me a lot of anxiety actually going and teaching because I would be so immersed, especially if I was in the middle of something and I'd be like, oh God, it's so hard to shut it off and deal with this. That's not the way you want to see it. But to me, it's like that's getting back to that first place of music, of just the joy of it and seeing someone else and talking about it. I get excited, man. And I was still talking about music, but I feel like when I'm that, it's like, it's a good feeling to not feel self-serving in any way, you know, because I feel like in those moments, I'm not trying to push. And if people find out about me and my band and they want to know, great, but I'm not like, oh, hey, check out my band. You know what I mean? So it's like, I like that aspect of it, at least for me these days, you know. But you're right, man. I know so many guys that just go out and ride bikes, or for a while at one point I went through this huge, workout phase, and that was just like I lived and died. And in a way it was really good for me because it just got me the fuck away from all this for a while, you know. And now I'm back in it and fat. So life is all about balance and not being Hitler is the point I'm trying to
make. Oh shit. Oh man, this is so fun.
Yeah, I don't know. What did you talk about on other podcasts? Actual music or what? Did you rant and I mean, I'm curious because, you know, this podcast...
what did we talk about?
A lot of times I just rant.
Dude, no.
Yeah.
No,
you've done a few different podcasts, you know?
No, I feel like you have like a personality that, like, it would be weird if the podcast wasn't that. I don't know. Like, I feel like that would be the whole like payoff of a podcast with Skunk in it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's any reason to change. I
try to put this hat on and behave and it doesn't work. So, yeah, that's what, dude. I will give myself credit. I think you said something. I'm gonna say one more thing and I'll shut up. But like, back to what you said earlier. One thing I give myself credit on is like that I'm me. You know, I mean. And I'm a fucking mess and I hate myself, but I'm me. And that's what you're going to fucking get on this podcast, or that's what you're going to get when I'm on stage. It is what it is, right? So I'll give myself credit in being like kind of a genuine artist in that aspect. Everything else, I'm a sham and a pile of shit. Fuck me. But I'll give myself that little bit of credit. So what you were saying earlier when we were talking about though, like, you know, what I think is so great about colleagues and people that I know that are phenomenal musicians that I'm just like, I don't even have I don't even deserve to be in the same room with them, but they're like cool, right? And respectful. And that's such a communal thing. That's the beautiful side of music, right? And interaction, this universal language. And this is the kind of stuff I geek out on in lessons and whatnot. And there was something else that I was going to draw a line to that earlier that I have now forgot. So someone else can talk while I think about it.
Yeah.
Go, Vic.
No, I like how you drew the, that last statement there about being with other people. You know, they may be more talented or whatnot, right? But they're very welcoming. Those are the kind of people that you learn from, right? So you're always learning in that mindset of learning. I think if more people found something, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be music, but it could be something like, working out. It could be picking up a hobby like woodworking or something where you have, just this small community of folks where you can reach out to, be welcomed. And, watch Fortune and Fire and go learn how to make a knife. But, get off the damn phones, get off Twitter, right? Get off the internet and go do something and just learn. And, I think that would actually fix a lot of stuff these days. But I know it works for me, right? Just recently started with a new gym. So I know, that place has been good for me. So.
Actually, this probably wasn't what I was going to say, but I brought this up several times too. But the podcast, I look at this.
Oh yeah,
kind of like the teaching, whereas it's still tied into music, and I'm still blabbing about myself on here and all this kind of stuff. But what I love about this, man, is like talking with all these different people that I've met, right? And some people that Vic has brought in, and everyone comes from a different place. A lot of musicians, artists, whatever, with bodybuilders, and all kinds of different people. And it's just fascinating. And it feels good to talk to other people and get to know them and what they're about. And I feel like I've started putting a lot more time into just sort of like promoting other people for whatever it's worth, just because I like it. I like sharing and being like, listen, this is amazing. And with students that are young, maybe teenagers that I've had for years, I'm like, oh my God, like, you're amazing. You've got it. How can I help you? I think that's what life is supposed to be about. And so when you go out there and you just play a show and you're just being you and you're just playing your music and you're not fucking worried about where it's going to take you and how famous you're going to get, you're doing it right. And if you're sharing things with other people, like, you're doing it right. And I've gotten so lost. So many of us had. I think we're in a time in history with a particular generation. Maybe I don't know, but we're very much narcissistic and self-immersed. And you got to realize that awareness is the first step, and the second step is to just like get away from it. You can have time for you and you can do your thing, but man, I feel like I get more joy when I actually fuck off, and actually look at and explore other people, and all that they have to offer, and that's what actually helps you grow and become a better person.
Man, that's so true. I think, I think it's, and now the podcast, and we never talk much about what, why you started this, and I guess it wouldn't be a great topic because you've probably already done that on multiple podcasts in this, but it's kind of, regardless of what why you started it to begin with, but it's things like teaching and this podcast, like I feel like now that I've laid kind of a foundation, I mean, as many of us have, like in our 20s, you kind of have to kind of be self-serving in a way. You're trying to get good at your craft, and then you just get exhausted by your own, self-obsession, right? Kind of like the self-obsession you sort of had to adopt to get somewhere, and now
sure,
it's just like trying to divert, all this energy and momentum somewhere where you get relief. Like at least I'll speak for myself. I mean, it's like, I'm just like, please, like, somebody talk about themselves so I will my brain will stop.
Yes, I understand. It's like the one side of the coin is like, you're right, because you have to have that, and there's nothing wrong with confidence and hard work, and you want to be the best, right? That's why we all are like where we are in terms of being able to teach music and perform and do things, because we wanted that and we worked hard for it, right? And over years and years of developing all these different facets of a craft of being a musician and all that. And so there's that on that part. I think it's fair to want some sort of recognition, to feel good when you get a compliment or recognition or someone buys something, because it's not something that you just woke up and said, I'm going to be an Instagram model. No, you put a lot of work into that shit to get where we're at, So I think that's valid. But on the flip side of that coin, it's like, now what can this do? I mean, ideally, right, that helps you make a living, but what can it do beyond you to make the world a better place, to help other people, to enlighten them, to enrich them, to make them feel good? Because that's where the real joy comes from. You know what I mean? Is when, I mean, I'm sure the feeling every musician does when it's like someone's just comes out of the woodwork and goes, man, I listen to this song every day, and I love this song that you did, and you're my favorite, this and that. I mean, it's not something that I get showered in daily or anything like that, but when it happens, like, it just makes my day. And I guess that's coming back on me to a certain, but what that really says is like, this is somebody that you've had a positive impact on, and you meant something to them, and you did something for somebody else, right? And that's cool. Like, I think, like, so it's like the balance between those things, right?
Yeah. The purpose of the podcast, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I keep thinking about it because it just evolves over time, right? But aside from getting on guest lists and free drinks and crafts and things like that, which was a great idea, Skunk.
Oh, no, I see.
But no, the main purpose is just, to have a conversation with people. Not everybody that's been on the podcast has been musicians, but, we've, like, for instance, our very first guest, I used to work with him. We worked together, and the common bond, the common thing that we shared was this love for Iron Maiden, right? So we talked about Iron Maiden a little bit, but then we also got into like his work in cybersecurity, he dropped like 100 pounds gotten and started competing, doing these bodybuilding competitions.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And then after that, he started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu competitions. He got injured last year, and so he started a podcast, and it's a really cool podcast about overcoming adversity. Right. So, Skunk mentioned Jerry. Jerry actually happened to be an extra on Idiocracy. Right. He was Tylenol Jones. And so, we just hung out with Jerry, learned that he liked country music growing up, and just had a BS session. So, I guess for me, music has always been one of those things that I've been able to make friends, because I like the same bands. Go to the military, you don't know anybody, right? And so you get dropped into a platoon, you see a dude listening to, the
Bro Country.
Yeah, Bro Country, right. And you're like, oh, hey, we're going to get along great, man. I got that same shirt that he's wearing in that video. The Jim Irsay, right? So I guess that's kind of how that's one of the aspects of the podcast, right? The other was that, free stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the one that said, it's one of those things that I always thought about and never really took initiative on. And then Vic was like, I think we were just catching up on a Zoom call or something because we hadn't talked in a long time, and everyone's pandemic, right? So you can't go anywhere. And I think you were just like, yeah, I've been doing some voiceover stuff or something. And I'm thinking about starting a podcast, and we're like, we just kind of talked about it, and like, yeah, let's do it. And Vic took the initiative to do the things that I never do, and did some of the research and whatever, like. How do you start a podcast? It's not that hard. And I mean,
it really isn't.
And I mean, based on just, I mean, you go through life and you meet a bunch of people and do a bunch of things. So it's actually been really cool to just be like, cool, let's fucking invite all these people to chat, and then talk over them.
I've never been, felt so gracious at being talked over though. This has been a lot of fun. I love that, and it's almost like it almost strikes me as a chance to, like, you and I like saw each other in passing at Lone Star, but like this is one of the most in-depth conversations, probably easily the most in-depth conversation we've ever had.
Yes.
So it's like it's almost in today's crazy, not only COVID, but like it is a way to kind of combine a lot of things in a good way, and it's what a strange medium. I listen to so many podcasts, but like, it's just mind blowing. Like, that I guess that there's a listener base. Like I'm confused. I'm like, why do I like to listen to conversations?
Yeah, right. I don't know, but and then now it's like that's the thing now is everyone has a podcast, But I think what's so cool is you're right. Like when would we ever do this? We wouldn't, and that's been the case with, I think, most guests that have been on the show. It's not like your best friends that you talk to. And I mean, sure, I'll have them on. But I think an intent from the get-go was like, I don't want to just like have a podcast where we bullshit with our circle of buddies, whatever, right?
Right.
I want to have like, and that's one thing that's just been so great about having 15 plus years of experience doing music in Austin now, is I've just met a shit ton of people, not even just in Austin, but all over the place. And we've recently, I mean, we've had a amazing engineer up in New York, we had on, we've had, guys that are in Nashville, Los Angeles, some guys I went to music school with 20 fucking years ago, you know what I mean? And they're catching up and having, like, same thing, who they are, you see something, you like a comment on Facebook. When's the last time you had a conversation, if ever? So I think that's what I'm really loving about it, man. And it's just like kind of teaching, I think, like, because like a lot of times coming to this, I'm like, crap, I got to do this and that. And, shit, But then I get on here and I'm like, I have an absolute blast just fucking shooting the shit and getting to know people, man.
Same way. And we get to listen to some really cool songs. I mean, there's been a few artists that
incredible.
They've come on and they've just blown us away. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
People and you probably wouldn't listen to because everyone I know is in a band, right?
Right.
We all have our music. We're so busy trying to push our music and this and that. And thinking about all your own stuff. And I mean, not even just one band, but being involved in all these different bands and stuff like that. So for me I never really did the Spotify thing. And now I've just I make playlists, I get on there, I listen to all kinds of, we've listened to so much music that I know I wouldn't have listened to, even if it's people that I know. That's fucking cool. And it's true. Like almost after every podcast, Vic and I are like texting like, fucking hell, dude, that song is kick ass. You know what I mean? Like hearing all this cool new shit, you know? So that's really cool.
Dude, that's awesome. You know, Sarah and I have been doing, we've been doing like covers of local Austin artists. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes
that's
people
killer.
we don't know. We just do like a verse and a chorus to throw it on like our story on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's been super fun. Obviously, maybe it helps that we do like an okay job. I hope, at least so far. But like, so far, artists are like, man, that's, it's so cool to hear it, sung by somebody else, and it's like a very I imagine it'd be very gratifying. Like the first time I hear somebody cover, actually, my buddy Dave, he sang "Secret Room," our song about self love. We'll say,
yeah.
He sang it on a cruise ship, or no, I think he sang it at a piano bar. And
it's an amazing feeling, man.
It's such a cool feeling. So cool, yeah. Man. And so it's that's been a way that I've been able to like, granted, yeah, like anything else, there's nothing you can do that doesn't in some ways point back to the self for something. But I feel more joy doing it than like that sick feeling of like I'm too
keeping your narcissism in check. Like I think it's just the big thing that we all have to do. Maybe not Vic. I know I'm a problem for me.
I do it too. Awesome.
Anyway, Luke, you disappeared.
Yeah, no, I had to text my buddy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because I'm hanging out with somebody after this, and he's like, "Oh, what?" Anyway.
You're like, Skunk won't shut the fuck up.
I told him. I told him wait till I'm done. So.
Tell him that I'm demanding that you cover one of my songs before I let you off the podcast.
He's texting his buddy saying, "Don't put these guys on any guest lists."
Yeah. Don't put them on any guest list. Whatever you do, don't sign on to their podcast. Got all political and weird and lots of Hitler talk. It was very uncomfortable.
Remember I said I need that call? It's time.
My phone is just... it's like the old days, 911 on your beeper. I don't know, Luke. You were still in diapers when that shit was going down. The old beeper days. Oh, it's a 911. Man. I got to bail, guys. Yeah, man. Actually, perfect timing, though. Luke, where can people find you? Luke and the Lonely is the band. Are you Luke and Lonely? I should do more research with websites.
No, you're solid, man. So
what's your best place?
So lukeandthelonely.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Luke and the Lonely, just spelled out. And then we on our website we have a mailing list which has we just sent out a monthly newsletter, and it has it's well done and it has some different things that aren't anywhere else. And then trying to think anything else I'm not mentioning. Well, I have my solo music, so right now it's just under Luke Bellet or Luke Bellet.
Recorded at your home studio in Singapore. Well, yeah, there was a song that you did recently, I guess, or put out recently that was recorded in Nashville called Red, White, Black, and Blue.
That's right. It's called the Red, White, Black, and Blue. And that's out on all streaming services and
under Luke Bellet. Okay.
Under Luke Bellet, yeah.
Cool.
So
From Singapore. Thailand.
One of those.
Dude, thanks for joining us, man. It's been really awesome to catch up. I would say catch up to learn about you and get it all wrong. Get all the facts wrong about you. It's been fun. It's been awesome.
This has been a blast, and I have to say, I now share your envy of Vic's voice. I mean, it's very, very.
I know, right? You know what's funny is like after years of like struggling with like,
and we talked way more than
a singer. No, Vic. See, like Vic's that guy though. That he's like I'm like the dude that shows up and I'm like yapping away to the chick the whole time, and she's like, oh god, and then Vic says like 2 words, and she's like goes home with Vic. Like that's Vic. Like he's the fucking stud. He doesn't have to say a lot of shit.
Well, I don't want to overdose people.
Yeah. Just little. Yeah.
You gotta put him out.
Yeah.
this podcast is good. Right when I kind of became comfortable with my voice and accepted, like, well, this is just what I sound like, and I guess I can sing okay enough. Then I started a podcast with Vic, and I'm like, damn it! It's like starting a pod. It's like being in a duet with Freddie Mercury, and you're like, fuck, I suck. Like, I hate the sound of my own voice yet. I can't turn it off. With that in mind, Vic, how about Vic signs us out with his sultry, amazing Vic voice?
Oh man. Well, everybody stay safe. Get your anal swab tests done, and
Call
see you on the next one. Thanks for joining. Good night.
My baby loves heavy metal, and she's drop dead temperamental. Met her down in Sacramento, dark nail polish, silver chains, black shiny leather. And every night I hold her tight, riding on the backseat of a motorbike. She loves to drive the wrong way down the freeway in the fast lane, doing a little over 95. My baby loves heavy metal. 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 Had our 1 year last September. Bought her champagne and flower petals. She told me not to act so sentimental. Drank from the bottle, broke all my John Mayer records. And every night I hold her tight, riding on the backseat of a motorbike. She loves to drive wrong way down the freeway in the fast lane, doing a little over 95. My baby loves heavy metal. 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 Woman and me, we never fight, it's understood. She's always right. I work the desk from 9 to 5 so she can